The night shift on Imperial Station Varix 9 was usually calm. Most officers knew nothing ever happened in this empty sector. No wars, no pirates, no strange signals. Only silence, metal corridors, and the soft hum of old machines. But on this night, everything changed in one single moment. Sensor Officer Ryler sat at his console, bored as always, tapping his fingers on the screen. He blinked slowly, almost ready to sleep. Then his screen flickered once, twice, and then every warning light on his board turned bright red. At first, he thought it was a system problem. But then he saw the numbers. A massive object had entered the outer range zone. No identification code. No friendly signature. No known shape. And worse, its size was far beyond anything the Empire had ever recorded. Ryler leaned forward, eyes wide. This cannot be real, he whispered. He tried to reset the scanner. He tried to refresh the signal. But the reading stayed there. The signal grew stronger every second, like a giant shadow moving closer and closer. Ryler opened a channel to Command. Station Varix 9 to Imperial Command. We have an unknown object. Extremely large mass. It's approaching fast. Static answered him. Then silence. He repeated the message, louder this time. Command, do you copy? This is an emergency. Unknown object on approach. Finally, Command replied with a sharp voice. Varix 9, send full report. Now. Ryler sent everything he saw on the screen. The data, the size, the speed, the strange power readings. When Command received the report, their line went silent again. Minutes passed. Every sensor on the station shook, trying to read the strange object. It was not slowing down. It was not answering any calls. It was just moving, with quiet and impossible purpose. Inside the station, officers gathered around the main display. No one spoke. The room felt cold, like fear itself had entered the air system. Station Captain Vorn finally spoke. What is that thing? No one knew. The object's shape slowly became clearer on the screen. Its dark outline looked like a giant armored beast drifting silently across space. Smooth edges. Heavy plates. No lights. No signs of life. It looked ancient but alive at the same time. A junior officer swallowed hard. Sir, I think this is a warship. Captain Vorn frowned. What empire builds something that big? Not us, not anyone, the officer whispered. Rumors ran through the station. Some said it might be a lost empire returning. Others said it could be a planet killer. The officers stared at the massive shape, but the longer they watched, the more fear settled into their hearts. Ryler ran new scans. His hands shook so hard he almost dropped the device. Sir, there is more. Captain Vorn turned slowly. What now? The energy core. It's waking up. Everyone froze. The object was not dead. Not drifting. Not abandoned. It was waking. The data showed a slow pulse inside the giant ship, like a heart beating after a long sleep. A cold shiver went through the room. Send full alert to the Empire, Captain Vorn ordered. This is no ordinary contact. Station Varix 9 prepared to warn all nearby fleets. But before they could send the full message, the object moved. Not drifting. Not turning slowly. It changed direction with perfect precision. Its new course pointed straight toward the Empire's capital system. Vorn whispered, Why is it coming here? No one had an answer. The ship's speed increased. Every sensor on the station screamed with overload warnings. Ryler backed away from his console as sparks shot from the panel. It's breaking every known limit, he shouted. More alarms echoed across the station. Lights faded in and out. The engines outside groaned from the pressure of the strange signal. Captain Vorn issued the highest emergency code available. Evacuate! All hands prepare for worst-case scenario. But even with all alarms blaring, no one on the station could take their eyes off the monitor. The closer the object came, the more its shape looked like something pulled from old nightmares. Then, a historian on the station ran into the room, breathing hard. I recognize that design, he said, pointing at the silhouette. I saw it in ancient forbidden archives. What is it? Captain Vorn demanded. The historian spoke with a shaky voice. A dreadnought. Human origin. The room went silent. Everyone stared at him as if he had spoken something impossible. Humans were gone. Extinct. Dead for thousands of years. Their technology was nothing but rumor and fear. How can a human dreadnought be here? Someone whispered. The historian shook his head slowly. If that ship is waking, then it has a mission. A chilling wave spread through the station. If the ship had a mission, and it was heading for the capital, then nothing in the Empire could stand against it. Before Captain Vorn could speak again, the dreadnought did something unimaginable. A single beam of blue light flashed from the ship, just for a second. Not a weapon. Not an attack. A scan. The beam hit Varix 9 and passed through every wall, every circuit, every living being. Ryler gasped as his screen reset. The dreadnought had scanned them. It knew they were there. And then, without warning, the massive ship accelerated to impossible speed, heading straight for the Imperial heart. Captain Vorn whispered the words everyone was thinking. There is no stopping this. The dreadnought's shadow swallowed the stars behind it as it moved. The Empire had seen its first sign, and fear spread faster than any message. The Imperial High Council chamber was built to handle pressure, but tonight the air inside felt heavier than stone. Every screen on the curved walls showed the same terrifying picture, a massive dark ship drifting toward the capital, growing larger with each passing minute. No one spoke at first. Not even the usually confident High Chancellor Sci-Fi. Each council member watched the silent dreadnought on their displays. Only the low hum of old projectors filled the room. Even the guards standing near the doors looked pale, their hands gripping their weapons too tightly. At last, Chancellor Sci-Fi cleared his throat. Reports from Varix 9 confirmed the sighting, he said, forcing calm into his voice. The object continues on direct course to our capital system. General Korvek, leader of the Imperial fleet, rose from his seat. His heavy armor clicked softly as he leaned forward. That is no object, Korvek said. That is a warship. A massive one. And our sensors show its armor is unlike anything ever recorded. Counselor Merith folded her arms, trying to hide her trembling hands. How is something of that size even moving so fast? What kind of engines does it have? Korvek didn't look away from the screen. Engines far beyond ours. A long silence followed. Then Counselor Drin, who always pretended to know everything, spoke with clear fear in his voice. The historians, they say the design belongs to humans. The word hit the room like a physical strike. A whisper spread through the council. Humans? Impossible. They vanished. They were only legends. No human ship could survive this long. Chancellor Sci-Fi raised his hand. We must not rely on rumors. But the historian assigned to the council stepped forward, holding an old datapad. I compared the shape to archived images, he said. The hull pattern, the plating lines, the design of the forward section. All match human dreadnoughts recorded in pre-Empire history. Several council members gasped. Then if this is a human dreadnought, one councillor whispered, what is it doing in our space? The historian shook his head slowly. No one knows. But these ships were built with one purpose, war. Sci-Fi's comm mask cracked for the first time. General Korvek, he said, deploy the defense fleets. Korvek nodded sharply. Already done. 3 full battle groups will form a defensive wall between the dreadnought and the capital. We will not let it reach our homeworld. But even he sounded unsure. As the plans were being delivered, a deep vibration shook the chamber. The screens flickered. Every council member froze. What was that? Counselor Merith whispered. A technician entered the chamber, face pale. High Chancellor. The dreadnought just activated a new system. Sci-Fi frowned. What kind of system? The technician swallowed hard. A scanning system, but unlike any we have seen. The screens zoomed in automatically. The dreadnought's front section glowed with a cold white line. It wasn't a weapon. Not yet. It looked more like an eye-opening. Counselor Drin whispered. Why is it looking at us? No one answered. The white line stretched forward, forming a long beam of soft light, pointing in one direction. straight at the Imperial Council chamber. Every member stood instantly. Some backed away. Some dropped their datapads. Korvek stared in disbelief. "It has targeted us," he said. "No," Marith argued, shaking her head. "Maybe it is just scanning." "Scanning the council chamber from millions of kilometers away?" Korvek snapped. "Nothing has that kind of precision." The Dreadnought held the beam steady. It did not fire. It simply watched. The silence became painful. Finally, Chancellor Syvar sat down slowly. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed pure fear. "We cannot panic. The Empire must not see us afraid. We must understand what we are dealing with." "But Chancellor," Drin protested, "if that ship is human..." Syvar cut him off sharply. "Humans have been gone for thousands of years. Whatever this thing is, it does not mean humans are back." But his voice trembled on the last word. The historian stepped closer to the main screen. "Chancellor, human dreadnoughts were not piloted like our ships. They were controlled by their own systems. They acted on orders even when no humans were present." Counselor Marith whispered. "So it might still be following ancient commands?" "Yes," the historian said. "Commands we do not understand." Syvar rubbed his forehead. "General Korvek, open communications with the ship. Any language. Any code. Try everything." Korvek nodded and opened a channel. The council waited. Static. Then more static. The Dreadnought did not respond. Korvek tried again. Still nothing. Counselor Drin stepped back, voice shaking. "It doesn't want to talk. It doesn't want peace." Korvek answered firmly, "Then we will stop it." But at that exact moment, the Dreadnought moved. A slight shift. A small turn. But enough to terrify anyone watching. The glowing white line reshaped itself. No longer a scan. No longer a simple beam. It began to take the shape of a targeting lock. The council chamber fell into cold silence. Everyone understood what it meant. The Dreadnought had chosen its first target. Before panic could explode, the lights in the chamber flickered and died. The Dreadnought's shadow grew larger on the screens as power returned. And Korvek whispered, "This is only the beginning." The Imperial capital system was not used to fear. For centuries, enemy fleets had avoided it. Pirates never dared to enter its borders. The Empire always felt strong, protected, untouchable. But now, everything had changed. Every shipyard, every defense platform, every patrol station watched the same thing appear on their long-range screens. The giant Dreadnought was coming closer. General Korvek stood at the command bridge of the Imperial flagship, Iron Shield. His jaw was tight. His fists were closed. He watched the Dreadnought's massive form slowly fill the screen. Its size alone made most officers feel small and helpless. Korvek turned to his crew. "We launch now. All cruisers, form the intercept line." One by one, Imperial cruisers moved into formation. 50 ships in total. They glowed with bright blue engines, forming a wall between the Dreadnought and the capital. Admiral Korvek took a sharp breath. "Open a final channel." A soft voice replied, "Channel open, sir." Korvek spoke firmly. "Unknown vessel. You are entering restricted Imperial space. Stop your engines. Identify yourself. Failure to respond will force us to act." The channel stayed silent. Only the hum of the bridge filled the air. Korvek tried again. "Unknown vessel, respond." But still nothing. Like the Dreadnought didn't hear them. Or worse, didn't care. The Dreadnought drifted forward with slow, cold confidence. No escort. No sign of life. No lights from its windows. Only a huge metal shell moving through the void like a dead god awakening. Finally, Korvek gave the order. "All ships, prepare warning shots." A wave of fear moved through the officers, but they followed. The first row of Imperial cruisers fired controlled bursts, small, non-lethal beams meant to warn. The shots hit the Dreadnought's armor, and something unbelievable happened. The beams disappeared. No explosion. No damage. No reaction. As if the Dreadnought absorbed the energy, like dust touching a mountain. One officer gasped. It didn't even scratch the surface. Another whispered, "What kind of armor is that?" Korvek stared at the readings. His heart sank. It didn't register the hits. It doesn't see us as a threat. The intercept fleet decided to move closer. The cruisers spread out, trying to surround the Dreadnought. But the more they approached, the stranger things became. Pilot after pilot reported the same thing. "Sir, my engine controls just froze. My shields are dropping. I can't move the ship. Systems shutting down." The Dreadnought wasn't firing. It wasn't attacking. It was simply existing. And its presence alone was powerful enough to shut down Imperial technology. On the observation deck, officers watched in shock as entire cruisers drifted helplessly, engines silent, crews yelling in panic. Korvek clenched his teeth. Retreat them! Pull them back! But it was too late. Half the intercept fleet was dead in space, floating like toys. And still the Dreadnought moved forward calmly, as if nothing around it mattered. Inside the Dreadnought, something stirred. A faint glow traveled across its outer hull. The Empire's main scanners caught it. Historians on the Capitol gasped as they recognized the pattern. "That is human coding," they shouted. "The ship is activating an old system." But before anyone could understand what it was doing, the Dreadnought sent a signal. A message. A sound wave. A transmission older than the Empire itself. Static filled the Iron Shield bridge. Officers covered their ears. The sound was sharp, ancient, broken. Korvek shouted, "Translate it." His technicians worked fast, but the words were in an extremely old human language, dead for thousands of years. After long seconds, the translation system produced half-broken results. A robotic, cold voice spoke. Unit H-01, Human Dreadnought, proceeding with mission search, seeking command, authority required. Every officer froze. It was true. A human ship. A human Dreadnought. Still following orders forgotten by time. Korvek's voice dropped. "It is alive?" The historian behind him shook his head. "Not alive, but functioning. These ships were built to operate for thousands of years without human crews." The bridge became silent. If this Dreadnought still had power, then its original purpose, whatever it was, could still be active. And the Empire had no idea what that purpose might be. The Dreadnought began scanning the area. Waves of strange light moved across its hull. Imperial ships that were drifting powerless were scanned one by one. A soft tone rang out. A signal reached the Iron Shield. Another message appeared. This one clearer. No human presence detected. Scanning, searching. Korvek felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "It's looking for humans," he whispered. "But humans are gone." A young officer swallowed hard. What will it do when it discovers no humans remain?" Korvek couldn't answer. Because none of them knew. The Dreadnought suddenly slowed. Then its lights changed. A faint glow, deep and dangerous, spread across the front of its massive cannon structure. Korvek's eyes widened. "That's a weapon charge." The bridge filled with panic. "It's going to fire." "Evade." "Shields up." "Move the ship." But the Dreadnought wasn't aiming at the intercept fleet. It was pointing its weapon straight at the Empire's largest moon colony, home to millions. Korvek felt dread wash over him. If that cannon fires, the colony is gone. And then, the Dreadnought's weapon core grew brighter, hotter, louder. A storm of energy gathered at its center. Korvek whispered, "May the stars save us." The Dreadnought had chosen its first target. The Imperial moon colony of Theron 4 was quiet when the nightmare began. Families were asleep. Workers were closing the night shifts. Children were floating in low-gravity playgrounds under the glowing dome lights. Nothing warned them that death was seconds away. Above them, in the silent dark of space, the human Dreadnought's weapon reached full charge. Its front section glowed like a rising star, white at the center, turning hotter, shifting into burning blue. Even from the colony surface, some citizens saw a strange light in the sky. They pointed. They wondered. They had no idea what was coming. Inside the iron shield, General Korvek stood frozen on the command bridge. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Move the fleet! Block the shot!" But the fleet couldn't move. Half of the cruisers were still powerless. The others were too far. The Dreadnought had aimed before anyone could react. A trembling officer whispered, "Sir, if it fires, the colony is gone." Korvek looked at the moon's population reading, 4.2 million lives. He slammed his fist on the console. "No, we need to disrupt the charge." "How?" another officer asked. "Nothing we fired even grazed the hull." Korvek didn't know. None of them did. And the weapon kept charging. Inside the Imperial Council chamber, alarms echoed through the tall golden halls. Every screen showed the same terrifying image, the Dreadnought preparing to fire. Councillor Marith covered her mouth. "It's going to wipe out Theron 4. The historian whispered, "Human dreadnoughts were built to break planets. A moon colony is nothing to them." Someone shouted, "We must send evacuation orders." "No time," another answered. "Even if they run now, they can't escape the blast." Chancellor Syvar slammed his hands on the table. "Is there no way to stop that thing?" No one dared answer. Back on the iron shield, a strange sound filled the bridge. A deep vibration. A pulse. Like a heartbeat from a monster. The Dreadnought's weapon was seconds from firing. Korvek shouted, "All ships! Fire everything! Disrupt it!" The Imperial fleet released a full volley. Missiles, lasers, shock beams, rail rounds. A storm of fire lit up space. All of it hit the Dreadnought. None of it mattered. Everything disappeared on impact, swallowed by its armor. But something unexpected happened. The Dreadnought reacted. Its weapon pulse flickered for half a second. The glow dimmed, then surged back. Korvek's eyes widened. It felt that. We didn't damage it, but we disturbed its aim. The historian's voice rang through the comms from the council chamber. "General, human ships respond to aggression. They were built to adapt in battle. If you keep firing, it might change its target." Korvek didn't wait. Hit it again. The fleet fired another full volley, even heavier than before. The Dreadnought trembled slightly. Its weapon pulse shook. On the colony below, citizens saw the glow stutter, as if the sky itself was breaking. Then the Dreadnought moved. A small shift. A slight angle change. Barely visible, but enough to misalign the shot. Korvek shouted, "It's turning away from the colony." But the Dreadnought didn't stop the charge. It redirected it. The glowing weapon barrel pointed away from Theron 4 and pointed toward the Imperial intercept fleet. Officers gasped. Some stepped back from their screens. "General, it's aiming at US." Korvek went cold. The Dreadnought had made its choice. The weapon fired. There was no sound in space, but every officer felt the shock anyway. A beam of pure white light cut across the dark void, straight toward the fleet. It moved so fast that no one could react. No shields blocked it. No armor slowed it. The first cruiser it touched disappeared. Not destroyed. Not shattered. Gone. Erased from existence. One moment it was there. The next, nothing. A second cruiser vanished the same way. Then a third. Then 5 more. Within seconds, 10 Imperial ships were gone, removed like dust from glass. Korvek stood frozen, unable to speak. What kind of weapon is that?" The historian answered from the council, voice shaking. "That was a human annihilation beam. It does not explode targets. It deletes them." Korvek whispered, "Deletes them?" "Yes," the historian said. "It breaks matter apart at the smallest level. Nothing survives. Nothing remains." The Dreadnought moved again, repositioning, preparing another shot. Korvek ordered, "All ships, retreat. Retreat now." Surviving ships tried to scatter. Some engines were still frozen. Others barely managed to turn. But one thing was clear. The Dreadnought could fire again. And if it did, the next blast could destroy the entire fleet. Inside the council chamber, panic finally broke. "This is hopeless. It can erase our ships like sand. We must abandon the capital. We cannot win against human weapons. Chancellor Saivar slammed his fist on the table. Enough. The Empire does not run. But even he looked pale. The historian stepped forward, voice steady but grim. Chancellor, this is only a fraction of what human dreadnoughts were capable of. If this ship is acting on old orders, then this is only its beginning phase. Saivar's voice cracked. Beginning? You're telling me this is not it? No, the historian said. Human dreadnoughts had a final stage. The room went silent. What stage? Saivar whispered. The historian looked at the glowing dreadnought on the display. The stage where it stops searching and starts eliminating everything that does not match human life. Everyone froze. If the dreadnought activated that final stage, the entire Empire was in danger. Silence spread through the Imperial command hall like a living shadow. The officers stood frozen, listening to the message that had just arrived from the unknown human dreadnought. No one moved. No one breathed. For the first time in centuries, the Empire heard a voice that did not fear them. Grand Marshal Verkus stared at the message console, his claws shaking slightly. Play it again, he ordered. The officer obeyed. The strange message filled the hall once more. Calm, steady, confident. Imperial vessel, you are drifting too close. Correct your course. That was all. Just one line. But it shook the Empire's heart more than an entire invasion fleet. The tone was not angry, not aggressive, but it held power, real power. A voice that did not warn. A voice that commanded. This cannot be right, whispered strategist Ural. No ship speaks to us like that. No species dares. They just did, Verkus replied, his voice heavy. Far away, deep in the nebula, the dreadnought did not move. It still sat in the same position, as if it were a sleeping giant too old to care about the Empire. Yet the Empire's fleets, 67 destroyers, 9 cruisers, and 2 battleships, were all keeping their distance, terrified to come closer. Captain RHA Till of the frontline cruiser stared at the ship's glowing silhouette. Why are they warning us? He murmured. They could destroy us in a second. His second officer replied softly, maybe they don't want war. Or maybe, RHA Till said, they don't need one. Inside Imperial High Council Tower, the panic grew. Councillor Merilek slammed his fist on the table. We cannot allow a foreign ship to command our fleets. We must respond with force. Councillor Cyrith shook her head sharply. Are you a fool? One human message and our long-range cannons went offline. One warning and our ships froze. We attack, we die. The room erupted into shouting, anger, fear, pride, confusion. But no one dared say the real truth. The Empire was scared. It had crushed hundreds of worlds. Yet one human dreadnought made them whisper. Finally, Elder Counselor Reldan, oldest and most experienced, rose from his seat. We need to understand their goal, he said calmly. That ship is not moving. That ship is not attacking. It is watching. Watching what? Someone asked. Us, Reldan replied. A chill ran through the chamber. Back at the nebula edge, the Imperial cruiser Vraction attempted to scan the ship again. The sensors vibrated with static. The ship's outline flickered. But then, something unexpected happened. For a moment, just a second, the dreadnought responded. A faint transmission pulsed from it. A simple image. The crew gasped. It was a human symbol. Ancient. Unknown. But below it were coordinates. Coordinates pointing to Imperial space. They want us to come there? The comm officer whispered. No, RHA Till said slowly. They want us to see something. But why us? Why the Empire? RHA Till gazed at the endless shadows around the ship. Something deep inside him felt wrong. Because, he said, they already know something we don't. On the homeworld, panic reached the streets. Citizens watched emergency broadcasts. Rumors spread like wildfire. The Empire angered an old human power. The Dreadnought comes from a forgotten war. It carries the last human warriors. Some even claimed the ship wasn't empty, that inside were soldiers who had survived impossible battles. Soldiers who didn't die. Whether true or not, fear grew. Inside the command hall, Verkus felt pressure tightening around his mind. He had led armies through black holes, burned cities, crushed rebellions, but never felt fear like this. A single human ship was rewriting everything he knew about power. "Prepare a diplomatic message," he ordered. Everyone stared at him. "You want to talk to them?" Ural said in disbelief. "Yes," Verkus replied. "Before they decide to talk again. Before they give another warning. Before the next message is not peaceful." The hall went silent again. Because deep down, every officer felt the same terrible thought. The first human message carried only caution. The next human message might carry judgment. And the Empire did not know if it deserved mercy. The Imperial Command Hall stayed in complete silence as General Verkus prepared the message. Never in the Empire's long history had they spoken to a lone ship with such caution. But this was no normal ship. This was a human dreadnought, silent, still, and terrifying without even firing a weapon. "Transmission ready," the comm officer said quietly. Verkus took a deep breath. "Send it." A soft chime echoed. The Imperial message shot across the void. Humble, careful, nothing like the Empire's usual tone. "Unknown vessel. We request identification and your purpose in Imperial space." Everyone waited. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. Nothing happened. The dreadnought did not move. It didn't even flicker. It simply remained where it was, watching. "Maybe they didn't receive it," an officer whispered. "No," strategist Ural said slowly. "They heard us. They're waiting. Waiting. But for what?" Suddenly, the dreadnought came alive with light. Slowly, like a mountain waking from a long sleep. A deep hum vibrated through every Imperial ship. Then a message appeared on all screens. Not a voice. Not a warning. A recording. Old. Broken. Human. The screen showed a battlefield, empty worlds, burning cities, and shadows of giant machines walking like titans. Soldiers in human armor moved through smoke and ruins, their faces hidden. This is a war," Ural whispered. But not like any war the Empire had seen. The recording showed worlds wiped clean. Fleets shattered. Entire suns dimming under strange weapons. And in the background, one symbol kept appearing, the same symbol the dreadnought had sent earlier. "What conflict is this?" Verkus asked. "It is ancient," a data officer replied. "Older than our empire." The recording shifted. New images appeared, humans standing on a command deck, watching something approaching. Something huge. At first, the officers thought it was a ship, but then they realized it was alive, towering, burning, a creature born from darkness and energy, a being that even humans feared. The recording broke apart. Static roared, and then new words appeared on screen. "We hid it. We sealed it. We warned no one." The hall froze. "What did humans seal?" someone asked, voice trembling. The screen flickered again. "If you found the ship, it means the seal is breaking." Fear struck the officers like a cold blade. Across the fleet, every ship watched the same message. No one spoke. No one blinked. The Empire, proud and fearless, now felt something deeper than fear, uncertainty. Inside the cruiser Vraction, Captain RHA Till stared at the last frame of the recording. "This is not a warship guarding us," he said. "It is guarding something else." "But we did nothing," his officer whispered. "That is the problem," RHA Till replied. "Something old is waking, and this dreadnought is our warning." Back in the command hall, Verkus finally broke the silence. "Get me all ancient records, all myths, all forgotten reports, anything that speaks of humans and creatures like that." The officers rushed to obey. Counselor Cyrith, watching the recording again, whispered, "Why hide this? Why not warn the galaxy?" Ural answered softly, "Because whatever humans sealed, they didn't think anyone could help them." A chill swept the entire room. Hours passed. Fleets circled the dreadnought from a safe distance. Citizens across the Empire waited for answers. Whispers turned into fear. Finally, the Dreadnought sent one more short signal. A single line of text. Time is almost gone. The message shook every heart. If humans were warning the Empire, if humans feared something, then that something was far beyond anything the Empire had ever faced. General Verkus looked at the glowing words and felt his blood run cold. "What is coming?" he whispered. No one had an answer. But everyone knew one truth. The Dreadnought was not the threat. It was the shield. And shields only rise when something worse is approaching. Panic spread through the Empire like fire through dry forests. Every station, every ship, every citizen had now seen the Dreadnought's message. Humans, creatures known only from myths, had sealed away something powerful and ancient. And now that seal was breaking. Inside Imperial Command, General Verkus stood at the center platform, staring at the human text glowing on screen. Time is almost gone. The words felt like a countdown. Strategist Ural spoke first. "General, we must act. But we don't know what we are facing." "No," Verkus said quietly. "But humans did." Across the nebula, the Dreadnought remained silent, its lights dimming and brightening like a heartbeat. Dozens of Imperial ships surrounded it, yet none dared to come close. Captain Rhatil of the cruiser Vraction felt a pressure in his chest, a strange instinct telling him something was approaching. Something huge. Something unseen. He looked at his sensor officer. "Scan again." "We already scanned 10 times, the officer replied. "Nothing." The ship suddenly shook. A deep sound rolled through space, like a dying star crying out. "What was that?" someone yelled. Rhatil's eyes widened as the main screen slowly filled with darkness. Not darkness from space. Darkness that moved. A ripple. A wave. A shadow stretching across the nebula. "Contact!" the sensor officer screamed. "Something is coming from behind the nebula wall." "It's not a ship," Rhatil muttered. "It's alive." The Dreadnought reacted instantly. For the first time, its massive engines glowed a blinding white. Its hull expanded, panels opening like armor waking from sleep. Old human runes lit up across its surface. Every Imperial officer watching felt the same thing. This ship was never asleep. It was waiting. And now, it was preparing for war. In the command hall, Verkus watched the sensors fill with strange readings. Energy spikes. Gravity distortions. Signals impossible to understand. "What is coming through?" Counselor Cyrith demanded. The sensor chief spoke with a shaking voice. "General, the readings match the creature from the human recording." The hall froze. "It survived," Ural whispered. "No," the chief replied. "This is bigger. Bigger. Stronger. Angrier. As if centuries of waiting had fed it. The Dreadnought sent one final message to every ship, every screen, every mind across the Empire. Not text this time. A voice. Human. Old. Calm. Unbroken. "Do not interfere. This is our burden." The Empire trembled. Even after thousands of years, humans still stood between the galaxy and darkness. A final ripple tore the nebula apart, revealing a massive silhouette. A creature made of shadow and burning energy. Its shape twisted like a nightmare, its roar shaking entire fleets. Imperial ships drifted backward in fear. Only the Dreadnought moved forward, like a lone warrior facing a god. Lights exploded from its hull. Ancient human weapons powered up, bright, silent, deadly. The Dreadnought's engines roared. Then, it charged, straight at the creature. The impact shook the stars. Energy waves blasted systems offline. Sensors went blind. Every Imperial ship lost visuals for a moment. When the screens came back, the nebula was fire, lightning, war. The Dreadnought and the creature clashed in a storm of light. Shadows tore. Stars shook. The void turned white-hot. And every being watching understood one truth. Humans never left because they were afraid. They left because they were fighting something the galaxy could not survive. And now, that fight had returned. The Empire could only watch. Because the universe had just reminded them. Some battles belong only to humans.